Good morning. It's my pleasure to address the European Banking Forum. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the transition to sustainable economies, one of the biggest challenges of our time. Something that takes collective action and a lot of courage, especially when we are faced with a minefield of challenges that threaten to stand in the way of progress. War in Europe, the worst energy crisis in decades, a challenging economic environment. The world has thrown us a few curveballs lately. Despite these challenges, from all quarters, people are doing their best to drive positive change. Policymakers, business leaders, NGOs, scientists, and academia and individuals. All these stakeholders are involved in helping us collectively overcome these hurdles and address the urgent sustainability issues we face. But this morning I want to zoom in on another stakeholder that has a critical role to play in all of this. You, our internal auditors. You can be the unsung heroes who can help support this transition and ensure we take the right path. There are a couple of ways you can do this. The first relates to your evolving role within your organizations. Your role has always involved and continues to involve providing independent assurance. That's number one. You instill discipline and enhance controls around material risks. However, in recent times, we have observed a natural expansion of this role, where internal auditors also perform a secondary function as trusted advisors in the business. This is not about overstepping bounds. The core principles of your role, objectivity and independence, they remain paramount. Rather, this is about business leaders being able to get timely access to the holistic view you have, that wealth of knowledge you gain when performing your primary role. Few stakeholders in a business have both that bird's-eye view and can go deep like you can. You can observe the interconnected risks and assess the organization from multiple angles. At the same time, you can connect the dots outside too. Forums like this one also serve as a way of providing a broader industry-level perspective, which you can bring back to management in an advisory capacity. This is all the more important when we think about ESG, which is such a dynamic area. Which brings me to my second point. At Nordea, we have seen how very useful it is when internal audit comes in early. As CEO, I want to make sure that we get things right with the first attempt. You don't want to be making changes to the setup 2 months or 2 years in. Again, this is where internal audit has proved so vital, helping us get things right as early in the process as possible. In practice, this means equipping teams with the necessary tools and knowledge to address ESG considerations. And it means helping teams get their arms around ESG data, what needs to be reported, how it should be reported, what risk could come up, what best practices you have seen. ESG is complex, and having a good framework in place early on is so important. It is great when advice is front-loaded. Another example on this is with preparedness audits. These are great because audits goes early into areas implementing change so that management can identify potential pitfalls. Like any well-governed organization, we have robust first and second lines of defense. But for them to truly succeed in this important task, Challenge and knowledge sharing from internal audit is needed. This way, we build solid competences in all levels of the organization. And our teams can stay on top of changes in the regulatory environment, which we know are frequent in the ESG area. I hope it comes through that this is a topic we take very seriously at Nordea. We are a bank with more than 200 years of experience supporting our customers. Society entrusts us with a vital role, which we don't take lightly. If you look at the history of major downturns in our financial markets, they are largely a history of management failure to disclose known business risks in time for investors to avoid big losses. It is therefore vital and sound business to stay on top of the risks stemming from climate change and ingrain sound ESG practices in the bank. That's what we do. At Nordea, we are progressing well. Sustainability is not a project. It's at the core of our culture. As a bank, it is primarily through our business with customers and partners that we can make the most positive impact. We can invest in renewable energy businesses, support sustainable organizations, and encourage our customers to adopt sustainable practices. We are doing this very concretely by working closely with corporate customers to advise them on their transition journeys. For example, we have committed to facilitate sustainable financing of more than 200 billion euro between 2022 and 25. So far, we have delivered roughly 100 billion towards that target. We're also not just looking at long-term targets, but tangible, achievable short-term objectives too. Carbon net zero targets now cover approximately 90% of the global economy. That's really positive. But there is a risk that optimists think that most of the hard work towards achieving real-world decarbonization has been completed, and that we now can simply sit back and wait for 2035 or 2040 or 2050. To achieve our long-term goals, you need to set and achieve short-term goals first. For example, our commitment is to double the share of carbon net zero assets under management to 35% by 2025. We've also committed to have at least 40% representation of each gender at the top 3 leadership levels of our company by the end of 2025. As someone once said, success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. It's what we can do today, tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that counts. Which brings me back to my main message. It's also what you, as our internal auditors, do every day that will be critical in the push to make the world's sustainable transition a successful one. With that, thank you for your attention, and let me wish you a fantastic day ahead with a lot of productive discussions. Thank you.